Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where it's always a good day when we've got a brand new Lamborghini to check out. And today we're going to take a first look at the new Lamborghini SC20. SC stands for Squadra Corse, Lamborghini's motorsports department, working on their second collaboration now with Centro Stile, the company's design division, to create the SC20. 2 years after they introduced SC18, which was the first of their single off series as they call it, now we have the second, a car based on the Aventador SVJ Roadster, but heavily inspired by the likes of the Aventador J and the Veneno. Today I want to take you in detail through the new SC20, the latest Lamborghini. Let's get straight into the details of the new SC20, kicking off with a design sketch from Micha Borkert, head of Centro Stile, that tells us exactly what this latest project is all about. With a briefing to create a V12 Barchetta, the SC20 is based on the Avendator SVJ, with the notable absences of the roof and front windscreen. In their place, a low-cut wraparound windshield, which encompasses the two occupants for the ultimate open-air driving experience. The SC20 is typically Lamborghini. The styling is aggressive and mean. It's a long and wide car while being exceptionally low to offer amazing proportions, while also featuring inspirations from motorsports via the collaboration with Squadra Corse. It's entirely designed, created and assembled in-house at the home of Lamborghini in Sant'Agata Bolognese, near to Bologna in Italy. But just look at this car. What a thing to behold. It's part of what they call the single off series. Cars like we've seen in recent years, the SC12, the SC18 Alston 2 years ago, where the customer has been involved with the factory throughout the process, from the conception of the idea, through the design iterations, all the way through to ultimately taking delivery of a car of which there will only ever be one. It is a one-off, it is unique, there will never be a second. It's quite a different experience to, say, the few-off series of cars like the Sian, the Centenario, the Veneno and the Reventon, cars that are very rare, where we've seen 15 or 20 models or up to 63 in the case of the Sian, but quite a different experience to entirely create one of your own, which is what the customer of the SC20 has been able to do. When you look at this car, it has that very low look, but a menacing look with all of the design features, the gigantic wing, the aggressive front splitter. But this two-seat open format is one that's been rising a lot in popularity recently since the introduction of the Mercedes-Benz SLR Sterling Moss about, a decade or so ago. We've now recently seen the Ferrari Monza, the McLaren Elva, the Aston Martin V12 Speedster, and very recently you might have seen from my fellow YouTubers at Daily Driven Exotics the launch of their Aperta, a custom car based on the Lamborghini Huracan EVO rear-wheel drive, similar concept, removing the windshield and the roof to offer that kind of open driving experience. But back to the SC20, just look at this thing. It's in Bianco Fu, it's complemented with blue Cephas accents to highlight the aerodynamics and some of the interior features and details as well. The rear of the car is just breathtaking. I see design elements from the Sian, for example, the triple tail lights on each side, those prominent central exhaust tailpipes that we've seen on the likes of the SVJ, Performante, STO and other Lamborghini models, and that wing, which feels like it's come straight off a race car, wrapping around the sides of the car, going right down to the diffuser beside the rear wheels as well, but also offering 3 different settings, low, medium and high, to adjust the levels of downforce, and I think reminiscent as well to the Veneno. This is a car that's inspired by the Aventador J, a car that I actually got to see quite recently as well, plus also the Veneno in terms of this radical design, but based on the Aventador platform. That means it's powered by the 6.5 litre naturally aspirated V12, in this case making 770 horsepower and 720 newton meters of torque, so the NA engine as opposed to the hybrid assisted engine that we're seeing now in the Sian. It's got the 4-wheel drive system, also the 7-speed automated manual gearbox, the ISR gearbox that Lamborghini have offered, so not moving into the world of double clutches, but it's all about the design. I mean, just start at the front end of this car, how open it is for the airflow and for the cooling, how aggressive that front splitter is, the way it's supported from the nose as well, which undercuts almost a hanging splitter down below. Few panel gaps over the car, you'll notice as well. The bonnet and clams over the arches, one single piece, but also kept very narrow, just shortening the look of what is normally a very short bonnet to begin with a Lamborghini. Then the rear deck with those fins that you have, the buttresses, sorry, and then sitting off the back of them, the scales almost for some cooling out from the engine, but a very aggressive, sharp design, edges everywhere you look, typically Lamborghini, instantly recognizable, but something very different to what's come before. Just look at it. It's so low. That's the thing that really stands out to me. And almost when you look at the mirrors, the way they're sitting out on the doors, which are of course opening upwards and outwards as we've seen on the Aventador, they're open. You can see the way the design is created on the leading edge of those. It's just something bonkers. And this is the thing when creating a one-off car, there's freedom to do whatever you might like. And I think in this case, presumably the customer, who's a well-known car collector, has said to Lamborghini, I want to create our take on this type of vehicle. We saw the SC18 Alston, a closed roof coupe format, similar in many ways to this, but the SC20 just opens it up. And I can't imagine what this would be to actually drive, to hear the sound of the V12 right behind being entirely open. If you drive in an Aventador Roadster, Aventador S Roadster, SVJ Roadster, whichever model it might be, they already sound bonkers, and this even more so, I'm sure. There aren't all that many details in terms of performance specs and things to run over in full, but the pinstriping, and in particular the blue Cephas accents that you have around the inside, for example, the intakes that you see inserted inside the front splitter, just really emphasizing the aero. I think it's a colour scheme that works very nicely, especially actually in this case, the blue pinstriping on the wheels. I'm not normally the biggest fan of that, but you've got the 20-inch wheels up front, 21-inch wheels at the rear, the blue Cephas stripe, as well as the tyre writing from Pirelli as well to complement that. For me, it's all about this rear view. The rear of this car just looks mental. The way the diffuser sits so prominently sticks out how much exposure there is to the tyres, the tail light design, and often these kind of projects, these one-offs, give us an insight or hint into what's coming next as well. And if the next generation of the Aventador has some of these inspirations that we've seen in the Sian, and yes, I've got my Lego Technic Sian behind me, and now in the SC20, well, that's going to be a very exciting place for all of us, I think, when those models start to hit the roads. Moving to the interior of the SC20, it's completely stripped out. They've had to make new components. In fact, a few of the components around the car have been 3D printed. You can see it retains the absolutely brutal and rigid bucket seats that we know from the different Lamborghini models. Very little material on them, a very harsh ride, but they certainly do look the part. The dashboard is swathed in Alcantara. There's even a new carbon fibre panel that's had to be installed at the front, but it carries through the infotainment system that we've seen in the newer models, the larger touchscreen with various different controls and settings, with everything of course moved. And I notice as well the little flap on the start stop button is now painted in blue as well, as opposed to the typical red that you see. But there are some amazing details like these Y shapes that you have on the door cards, very typically Lamborghini, complementing the carbon fibre, looking fantastic. The SC20 embroidery that you have on the central tunnel on the passenger side as well. The floors, which are actually their carbon skin, carbon fibre floors, as opposed to, let's say, a typical carpet or something you might normally see inside such a car. We've got some renders as well to see what this would have been like. And can you imagine being the customer seeing something like this and trying to translate it into what your car is going to look like? And I quite like those openings that you have in the buttresses behind the headrests as well. No names or anything like that, kept as a Lamborghini product, but I think the front is created in a way also to help with the airflow that's managed over the top of the car to direct and control all of that. And one thing I noticed from this angle, if you go in towards the headlights, which are a new design as well, you also have this area just over the front wings to direct and guide the airflow. Motorsports angle on that, and the openings that you have off the back of them as well. And even look at that rear arch, just like on the Super Trofeo Evo race car and now on the Huracan STO as well. Lamborghini not being afraid to go full on out there with the different shapes and styling and the angles that they create into their vehicles. The SC20 has clearly brought in elements from a number of different Lamborghini models, but as I said, there are two that clearly stand out more to me than the others. The first is the Aventador J, that open two-seat Barchetta format, and the second is the Veneno, the first of the really radical and crazily aggressive Lamborghini models, bringing them together into the SC20. And actually the Aventador J is quite an interesting one in these terms, because I would say it was one of Lamborghini's first one-off models that they didn't actually create at the time with a customer in mind. It was almost a decade ago they presented it at the Geneva Motor Show, an open version of the original LP700 Aventador, and at that time everyone went wild for it. Customers came forwards very, very quickly, and it's now found its way into a private garage where it still appears at events from time to time. And in fact, I was actually lucky enough to see it about 6 months ago.
This is it. This is the Lamborghini Aventador J that was launched. Total surprise. I think it was just introduced as an almost concept, a one-off, and a customer made an offer that Lamborghini couldn't refuse, and they allowed it to be purchased. But based on the original Aventador, the LP700-4, 6.5 litre V12, but with no roof to speak of, this complete open Barchetta style, that low slung cut window, an absolute one-off. And look at the matching helmets inside. Look at this. I remember seeing it at that Geneva show. The pictures of it were launched the night before the press days at the show, and I was just absolutely flabbergasted by how cool this thing was. Look at it. Aventador J, named J for Yota, the Lamborghini race car designation. Look at those wheels, look at the bodywork. Carbon, but still very much the looks of the normal Aventador, if I can say that. Obviously roped off due to the value. I mean, it's almost impossible to put a price tag on it. I think back then it sold for circa €2 and a bit million. Now, name your price. I don't think it's ever going to be for sale. Look at the cool designs. Look at how the rear view mirror is that fin in the center. This is mega. This is absolutely epic. Lamborghini Aventador J.
I do think that it is one of the best looking cars, and it's interesting to see how the Aventador J was the Barchetta version, you could say, of the LP700 Aventador with the cleaner lines in a beautiful dark red paintwork, where the SC20 is more the Barchetta version of a Veneno. Now, there was the Veneno Roadster, but it's just a little bit different. Obviously not having the windshield, it creates a different format, a different look of the car, but what an absolutely bonkers thing this SC20 is, and I'm sure this is just the start. No doubt behind the scenes, Mitja and his team at Centro Stile are working with many customers to create some crazy one-off projects going forwards into the future. I hope we're going to be lucky enough to see this being driven. As I mentioned, it is a well-known collection. They do get used, so I hope that is going to be the case. We might be lucky enough to see it out and about, perhaps around the world. All I can say is it looks stunning, and I think it's the epitome of what a Lamborghini should be. Impractical, crazy, probably very expensive, but just something monstrously cool. A one-off, a crazy creation, and an absolute dream, I am sure, for the owner. So thank you very much for watching my first look at this new collaboration between Centro Stile and Squadra Corse, the SC20, an exciting Lambo, and hopefully there'll be a Lambo in my garage before too long. That's it for now though, guys. I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!